don't you have court today? I'm like, but it's virtual. So it's just from here. I can wear my leather pants. He's like, oh, okay.
That's awesome. But, I mean, why don't leather pants fly in court?
Facts. That's a good question.
Yeah, I was about that. Yeah, that's...
No.
What?
There used to be whole dress codes where we had to wear, particularly obviously women, you had to wear stockings, no pants. I mean, and I've been a lawyer for 21 years. And so within my career, it was still very rigid, jacket, blouses.
Wow.
Yeah, like I would never go to court in just this sweater. I'd have a jacket or a blazer of some kind.
Oh my goodness.
So definitely not leather pants. Or zebra, leopard tone, crazy.
Neither?
Oh,
like,
no.
What?
No, it's super boring what I wear to court. Super boring.
So the legally blonde is just not.
So it's interesting because for some people, they do dress that way. I tend to want, I mean, I may wear a fun piece of something, and sometimes I get a little crazy with my shoes as long as there's not a jury present. But if there's a jury present, then no, really calm and subdued, because I prefer for them to focus on what I'm saying and what's happening, aside from my fabulous shoes. So yeah, I tone it down quite a bit, definitely if there's a jury. So. No,
that's an interesting thought that you're that, like that you have to be meticulous like that in that kind of setting with just how people view you. Like
jurors are amazing, and the things they care about is unbelievably interesting. And it's interesting because you would think they're listening to, somebody's big life week or month or day or however long the trial is going to be, and that they're going to care about the testimony. And the majority of the time when you talk to people who've served on jury duty, they will tell you what the people wore, the drama that they were sensing behind the scenes. My sister served on a jury, and she critiqued the outfits of the lawyers. Like, she was like, girl, you are not going to believe what that lawyer was wearing. I'm like, what was the case about? Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but it was a criminal case like this. She's like, yeah, I paid attention and we did the right thing. But girl, the outfits. And it's really, really interesting. So yeah, I have to put a lot of thought into what I wear in the courtroom. A lot.
Well, I mean, it's really, I mean, I don't want to say it's, I don't know if I'm not going to, I wanted to say it's similar to, if you communicate for a living and you go into all these different types of environments, you kind of scout the environment. You kind of know who you're talking to, and you present yourself in a way that makes sense to the, I mean, I think that's just a beautiful art of communication. I mean, I'm all for people that can just, wear their hoodie wherever they go and just communicate because they're what. But I like the idea that somebody did something a certain way because they know how I like to, and it's just a better form of communication. So I applaud the professionalism.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was early in my career that I had a mentor tell me about that, just the way you present yourself. And I also have to take into consideration I'm a brown woman. So, there's certain things that, it took me 20 years as a lawyer before I wore my hair natural in court.
Wow.
I would always pin it down or I would straighten it. And so, because there were understandings in my head of what judgment may come and how that may impact my client. And so it was actually, I just had the first trial ever that I did with natural hair. I won, but it had nothing to do with the hair.
Are you sure, Ken? It might have.
I mean, it might have been the shoes. No, it was, but it was, to me that morning, the first 2 days while we picked a jury, my hair was pinned back like I generally do in a low bun. And day 3, I got out of the shower and I'm styling my hair, and I sat there and it was a whole thing for me, like a whole, okay, I'm gonna do this. And okay, here I go. And I did, and then I did it a couple more days and then it went back. And so, but it was funny because the day we knew we were doing the verdict, getting the verdict, I wore my hair natural. And it was really neat because the client representative, it's a corporate client, and the client representative that was there the entire trial was a black woman. And so when we got the verdict, it was really neat. She actually made a comment. And I was like, okay, all right, this is cool. This is cool.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm so glad that you shared that, because it's amazing. I think what people don't think about, we don't realize, we don't, we're pretty comfortable in our own shoes. And we don't always think about putting ourselves in somebody else's. And so like,
Or their heels.
or their heels.
Facts.
I mean, yeah, forgive me. Good call, Connor. Or their heels. Or their heels.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmenthaler, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmenthaler, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risks you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through. Those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
Yeah. Welcome back to Venture Lounge, everybody. Nothing ventured, nothing changed. I'm Connor Sherman, creative director here at Legacy Angel Network. Here, joined by our fearless founder, as always, Matt Helmenthaler. Matt, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Did you eat breakfast this morning?
I did not eat breakfast this morning. I did drink some coffee, and I went to go do a workout, and my workout got interrupted by a meeting I didn't know I had. So
I remember I was there.
Yeah. I'm literally walking in the parking lot. I'm like, I'm there 10 minutes. I had a decent ab workout, but then I had to go. So that was.
You made the meeting. It all worked out, man.
Too much information?
No.
Okay, so too much. Anyway, so but yeah.
Introduce our friend here.
I'm so excited about this. I am so excited about this. This is Karen Money Montas. No.
I like it. The new brand.
Montas.
This is the new brand, Karen.
This girl is freaking cool. I mean, when you look up cool in the dictionary, it says see Karen Montas, and I mean that. I'm really pumping you up here. But,
yes.
But the truth is, I mean, we met over a year ago, right? And we didn't know each other that long. And I already knew, like, the second I met this lady, she's freaking rad, and I want to be her friend. But she ends up seeking me out, and she's like, hey, we got this thing going on with Children's Hunger Project, and she started talking to me about it. She's like 10 minutes in, she had me already in my head saying yes about 45 seconds in, but I didn't tell her that. And it's just she's an amazing human being. Does a lot of wonderful things for our community. She's a great wife, a great mom, a great friend, great mentor to other people. She helps kids all over our community. Uses her resources to bless others. Like, she's just the kind of human being you want to know.
Oh, thank you. I need you to follow me around all the time as my hype man.
I'll do it. I'll go into any room and I'll spin for you.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the podcast, Karen. We're glad you're here, man.
Thank you. I'm really happy. I really think that's a riot. Thank you guys for having me.
Maybe the title of this could be Money Montas.
We're going to have to work it into the headline.
Somehow.
Somewhere. Yeah. Karen, just give us your background. Are you from here? I
was born in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, well.
I moved to the States when I was 10. And cool part about that, when we moved to the States, we moved to Palm Bay, Florida, of all places. And my parents had very little money. And we lived in someone's garage for about a couple of months. And that's how my American dream began. And I have two sisters and then, my parents. And even thinking back to that, you can see I'm getting a little emotional. And then I grew up in West Palm. So that's where my family ultimately settled, and came to Brevard probably in 2006. So.
Was the connection you had in the U.S. just in Palm Bay?
Yeah.
Is that how you guys ended up there?
Yeah, we had some family in New York, but my parents, keeping in mind this is the 80s, so my parents weren't keen on moving their three little girls to New York City.
Yeah.
And so they were considering options, and Brevard County seemed like, which it was, a quiet, safe place. And so we were here for a little bit until my mom's a physician, and so she needed to learn English and pass the boards and be able to practice here, which took a little bit of time. And so that's when they realized it would be easier to do that in South Florida. And so that's how we ended up down there.
Do you know what those conversations were that led to your family moving you all here? What was their idea of the
No.
American dream? No?
I know now, at the time I was 10, so it was just, hey, we're leaving.
Yeah.
We came somewhere in the winter before, and my parents brought us to Disney. I remember that vividly. And so my thoughts as a 10-year-old when I was moving to the States was Disney.
Yeah.
Awesome. Palm Bay in the 80s was not Disney. And so, you know, there was...
It's still not Disney.
Correct.
I mean, I love Palm Bay, but
Yeah,
it's still not
right.
Disney.
And so it was, I now know that for them it was, you know, this is the 80s, it's the height of the drug trade. The Dominican Republic was in a little bit of turmoil during that time. Now we recognize that part of it was the chaos of they were the in-between of the U.S. and Colombia, because we're smack in the way of traffic.
Right.
And so it just wasn't a place they wanted to raise their 3 girls. And so they thought the U.S. would be it. And I mean, they made a good call.
So your family gets here, you go to South Florida.
West Palm.
To West Palm. Now, what brought them back up here? Was it
So
just like,
they are still down there.
oh,
I
wow.
came up
You
here.
came up here.
Yeah. So went to college down south, went to law school down south, moved to Orlando with a job after I graduated law school, and was there for a couple years. My son Samuel, who is 21 currently, was born in South Florida. And then we moved, their dad and I moved to Orlando. Gabby was born in Orlando. She's 18. And in 2006, their dad is from Brevard. And so he wanted to move back home. And so we moved back home. And then I stayed. It's a great place to live. And so when we had what I affectionately call my asset reallocation a couple years, 10 years now, I decided to stay. I mean, it's great. It's home. It's home. So.
I love the terminology. Asset reallocation.
Well, you know, it's interesting
pretty
because
interesting.
I say that because when people say divorce and the phrase divorce, it's so negative.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's also why I don't call my ex-husband. I call him the father of my children, because
Right.
ex-husband seems like it's as a relation to me and something
Right.
sort of negative.
Right. Mhm.
But he's the father of my children. And
Yeah.
so that's a positive.
Yeah.
And the same with asset reallocation, because it stung.
Yeah.
And so, but, you know,
love
to
that.
focus it on our failure focuses on the wrong thing.
Sure.
And I always wanted to be very cognizant of that for my children.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely right.
So I tried to be careful with my words, and that's kind of one of the terms I like.
Yeah, instead of saying we have 250 listeners, we say fastest growing Palm Bay adjacent podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same terminology. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I mean, thanks for not to minimize that. We're pumped about everybody tuning in every week, and yeah, that's cool about your story, Karen. What led to your road in law? Like, why was that? Any idea why that was your interest or how you got there?
Not at all. Zero.
What?
So I was going to, if you look at my high school yearbook, it says that my dream was to be an orthodontist. Why any child thought smelly bad breath was an ideal blows my mind. But that was my thought, is I was going to be an orthodontist. And I got to my first semester of my second year in undergrad, organic chemistry, which is terrible for someone who doesn't like math. And I did well in high school, had done well up to that point, and I'm in organic chemistry and I am struggling. And I hadn't struggled academically ever. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. The professor calls me and is like, you're not gonna figure this out. And I was like, what?
How dare you?
Oh, I'm gonna figure this out. So I stay in the class another couple of weeks, and then he calls me, he's like, so you have a week before you can actually withdraw from the course and just get a withdrawal, as opposed to get the F that you're going to get. And I was devastated. And so I call my mom, and because she's a physician, she's like, you'll figure it out. Just do the work. It'll make sense. It's hard for everybody. And I'm like, I just don't think I get the concepts. Like, I don't think I'm understanding the science and the math. And so I withdrew from the class and had a small crisis, and was in English classes at the time and loved them. And so ended up rolling into that, and then had a mentor who said, I think you'd be a really good lawyer. And I'm like, meh, I don't think so. But she kind of said it a couple more times, and I was like, okay, well, I can roll with that. And here we are, all these years later.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, it was perfect God timing, and I think I would be, or am, a better lawyer than I would ever been an orthodontist, other than as an orthodontist, the other person isn't talking and I get to talk the whole time. So there is a little bit of that amazingness that could have happened as an orthodontist, but we'll roll with it.
You know, it is amazing how like those our course changes, and like we have a plan, and then. You know, and then it's
the infamous plan.
Yeah. We have the infamous plan, and then it just. I mean, I can tell you, like when I started this thing, like years ago, I had a very simple plan, and what I found was that I had to, in order to, it was crazy, in order to grow it, right? So my first employee. Was Jessica Marsh. Jessica Marsh. You can look her up on Facebook.
She's right over there.
Don't you dare. No. So she was my first quote unquote employee, and in order to afford her, I had to take work that I was doing from somebody else. It had nothing to do with really the network stuff. So I was doing stuff over here so that she could help me grow the network stuff, because I didn't have time to do the network stuff, because so I had to get really creative with doing these different. My plan was, I have a good idea, everyone's going to love it, we're all going to do well, and I'll be able to bring on some people to help me. And that's just not how it worked. And then all the way down the path, we've had to do little things over here to build the bigger vision of what this is going to be, and the plan changes. I also thought I was going to be a pastor for the rest of my life. I mean, I was sold, done. I thought, yeah, I'm going to be a pastor till I die, and nope, I'm not. You know, so it's it is interesting how that works. It's crazy.
What about building so how do you get from law school to building your own practice, Karen? Is there a lot of steps in between that, or like what has your entrepreneurial journey looked like, founder journey?
So I started working at a law firm in West Palm when I graduated law school. Right as I was preparing for the bar, found out I was pregnant with Samuel, so that was an interesting thing.
Wow.
So there is a photo of me in Tampa where they give the bar, to thousands of people at one time, and I'm pregnant and just stressful, because as any pregnant woman knows, you got to go to the bathroom a bunch of times, and it's a time test, so it was a mess. But passed on my first time. And so
Amazing.
Moved to Orlando, practiced there for a little bit, and then in 2009. Had a trial here in Brevard County, and by then I was living in Brevard but practicing in Orlando, still at the same firm, and had a trial here, and it was the first time in that setting that I got home at a decent time when I was in trial, because the courthouse was in Vieira and my house was in Palm Bay, so it was so eye-opening to find myself, I can do this and still go home and see my children, and so that was kind of a neat thing. And the opposing attorney in that case was Sammy Cacciatore, who I adore, and he unfortunately recently passed away last week, but he was lovely, and he made a passing comment about, well, you live here, why don't you practice here? And I sort of sat there and said, well, because I've been with this firm for a long time, I know what I'm doing, I'm happy. And he said, well, there's plenty of firms in Brevard, and he introduced me to my former partner, John Johnson, who, cute side story, the two of them together made case law in the state of Florida back.
Oh, wow.
And I studied their cases in law school, which is a cool kind of circular, really neat. And so I joined John. He introduced me, John hired me, and I originally hated the concept of owning a small business, hated it. It was risky. It was, in my opinion, lacked the stability that I wanted. But thankfully, I allowed the process to do its thing. And when John approached me and said, hey, I want to sell, do you want to buy? First of all, I said, I'm broke as a joke. What do you mean? How is this going to work? And he worked with me, and we figured it out, and now I own the firm, and it's really cool. And it's great because I get to do what I want to do, how I want to do it.
Right.
And that's the most exciting part of being my own boss.
Right.
It's risky, it's scary, there's a lot of responsibility, but I get to dictate the pro bono cases we take. I get to dictate if I see a client who is struggling, who can't pay their bill, I can adjust, I can consider, I can move. And then in my plaintiff's cases, I get to see the impact immediately when we settle a case or when we win a case to the client, because I'm giving them a check after the case is resolved. So
that's really powerful. And I think for a lot of people that are true founders that watch this, they really can identify with that story, because you start with nothing and you have to literally scrape, go out, find the business. You've got to go and you've got to meet 100 people. You've got to build your own personal network. You've got to go and do all these things. You've got to, in some other cases, you have to go raise the capital. You have to sell people on the idea, and then at that point, will I make it? And then you're just clawing and clawing and clawing and clawing to get to this, and it's only a founder can understand what it's like to not be guaranteed a paycheck, to go through that struggle, and only the spouse of a founder too, can grasp that pressure and what that does. And to build something literally from nothing with no safety net.
now
It's nuts.
It's crazy. I had a little bit of a benefit, which was I bought something that already existed.
Right.
What has been the hardest growth, though, it was the style which that firm, what John had created and his firm admin Beth had created, which was excellent, was a little bit antiquated. And so there were parts of it that we really had to start from scratch. As technology has improved and as just the way society has moved and social media and things like that.
Right.
So there were some components that we did have to completely toss what had been done by them for 30 some odd years, and then come in and start from scratch. And that was very scary because their way worked.
Yeah.
But it was the concept of at some point it's not going to continue to work. And,
Right.
I've got to let this thing ride for, Lord willing, decades. So that part is very changing something that had already been successful and shifting it and kind of going, okay, I hope this works, was very scary. And you mentioning the spouse, I got one of the better ones.
Yeah, you do. I was going to bring that up next because our staff here has Connor and Aubrey are happily married. Still happily?
Happily.
Okay, cool. And
I'll answer for her.
but yeah, that's unique. That's not a lot of spouses don't get to do that or even can do that.
Right.
So what's that been like? Because I know
Awesome.
he was a firefighter.
Yeah.
And went and he was he likes to surf. He's got this. He's kind of a man's, in my opinion. He's kind of a man's man. You wouldn't. He's got a quiet demeanor.
Yes.
But I feel like you should never mistake that for
Weakness or...
Oh, no. I think he could take out anybody in this room.
Yeah. Well, he's a black belt. So yes.
Yeah. So all that said, it's been fun.
It's been awesome.
That's cool.
And it's a really good balance to my... that he's so chill.
Yeah.
Because I am, I think I said earlier, 100 shades of ridiculous. And so he is the perfect balance. He's the yin to my yin. And at the office, it's been great. So he, as you mentioned, was a fireman, and that was his dream job, and he was living his dream life, and it was wonderful. And then our firm admin was due to retire, and so we were trying to figure out what do we do, and a lot of things kind of crashed at the same time when all of that was occurring. And he came to me one day, and he's like, I think we could make this work. And, we prayed about it. We talked about it. We asked other folks, hey, what do you guys think? And we had a couple of people who I trust say, I think you two could pull it off. And we're 2.5 years in, and it's awesome. We keep our areas separate. We try not to talk about work at home.
Yep.
we really try, and pretty much for the most part we can pull it off. The only thing I don't like is when he tells me I can't spend money. And sometimes he's like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, maybe I will and I'll tell you, but I can't do that because that's disrespectful as my spouse. Crap. But yeah, other than that, it's been really cool. And the staff love him, and we've had 2 of the most successful years the business has ever had.
That's awesome.
The 2 years he's been there.
That's really
which
cool.
is crazy.
That's cool.
And, you know, I can just see how this will be long-term good. You know, I don't know if he wants to do that because, as you mentioned, he's incredibly active. I mean, he hikes the Appalachian Trail. We've done hikes in South America. I mean, he's very active. I'm active adjacent.
Right.
Amazing.
I love my husband, so I am active adjacent.
He tells you about the trail, and it's just like,
Well, I
that's
did
enough
the
for you.
Inca Trail with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I did that. That's why I'm adjacent. Like, I'll do the ones for his next significant birthday. We've discussed a couple of hikes because that's what he enjoys, and so he wants to hike to Petra in Jordan, and then there's a 5-day through the desert, and you show into the treasury, which is the Indiana Jones temple.
You're going too, Karen?
Yes,
Let's
so I
go.
got to start exercising now.
I've always wanted to go to Petra. I've been to Israel. I've been to a lot of, I've hiked some of the, but like Petra, man, that'd be amazing.
So that's on his list, and then Base Camp Everest is his other place he wants to do. And so, you know, we've been to Patagonia. We've done some pretty cool trips. But yeah, adjacent, because it's not, I like being with him in the process, and I like being the cool person that says, well, girl, let me tell you, I climbed, the Inca Trail. But I'm not like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm, pooping in the woods and eating from it. Like, no. Give me a Ritz-Carlton all day, every day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What's like Karen's R&R, like what helps you relax, kind of reorient, get back focused outside of business?
I want to say shopping, but it's going to get me in trouble because it makes it sound bad.
I wasn't going to say shopping because I'm smart, but I knew you were going to say that.
So in reality, I love to read. Reading is my absolute favorite pastime, hands down. I am a people person, so being with my family really recharges me. Or my quality people. I have a core group of girlfriends, and so being with my folks is a big deal for me. Reading. I enjoy the beach a lot, but not to get in the water.
Right. Beach adjacent.
Yes.
Ocean adjacent.
Yes. I like to look at it. I like to smell it. I like to feel it.
Yeah. Right.
Unless I'm like in the water, because Thomas and I are divers. So
cool.
Diving is probably the activity we enjoy the most together.
Man, no, you guys are really adventurous. That's not you're saying all that.
I know, isn't that crazy? And it's funny because when I say that, people are like, yeah, but we've done skydiving, we do some pretty crazy things, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm adjacent. Not the diving. I was diving years before he was. That I've always enjoyed. And it took me a while, it took me being in therapy and talking about things to understand that part of why I like the diving so much is because it's quiet. Mm-hmm. It's quiet, and you have to really focus on your breathing and your safety and what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so I've been diving since the early 90s. I got certified in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I love it.
I've only been diving once, and it was in Roatan. It was beautiful. It was absolutely amazing. But but the way that they would, they just let tourists go out and do it that don't have certification, which is super safe.
Yeah.
And so I'm out there. I learned how to dive out in the ocean above the reef that we were diving on. Oh. And
super safe.
I was freaked. I just honestly, like the first 10 minutes, I'm like, I shouldn't be under here. I shouldn't be able to do this. This is not okay. And Kelly was perfectly, because she's done diving and stuff, she was perfectly fine. By the time we were done, my tank was down to like nothing. Yeah,
you used up all your air.
Kelly's was still like half full. The other one was like 75%. I'm like, oh my Lord, this is embarrassing. But yeah, it was fun. Yeah. It was fun. We actually are going to go get certified together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're excited.
It's neat because you have a built-in buddy, and that was the cool thing when Thomas got certified. I now had a built-in dive buddy, and before that, I would have to find somebody or coordinate with a group that had an extra person to be my dive buddy. And so now sometimes we just walk off the beach here, preferably down in Vero Beach, and there's a couple of places there. And we live in Indian Harbor Beach, so we'll head down to Satellite or Melbourne Beach, and we have all the gear, so we'll just load up our gear and walk off and dive for a little bit. Yeah, it's really neat.
That's really cool.
And I'm thankful that he's willing to do those things and then has his own things that he enjoys, like real hiking, that he just enjoys doing on his own. So
that's cool. It's cool that you're cool with him enjoying those things on his own.
Oh, yeah.
That's also really cool.
Because he's a whole individual person outside of me, Yeah. And it was funny because I remember when the movie Jerry Maguire and people were talking about people completing them and so, and I'm like, that's so weird. No one should complete you. Like, you should be whole on your own. Yeah. And then this person comes and compliments you. And I think that's where Thomas and we complement each other. And some of that is the things we enjoy separate of each other.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
That's really awesome.
No, I also love the idea of, there is something special that happens in activities like diving or whatever else you're doing recreationally, going for a run, where narrowing your cone of attention, right, really is super therapeutic. When you really have to focus on this one thing. I think that's...
And the air, because when you're diving, like Matt said, the first couple of times I went diving after I had children, there was a higher anxiety point for me of, okay, this could be dangerous. I could die from this. And so I was noticing I was sucking up all my air. And I started having to just regulate my breathing. And so the concept of I'm underwater, and particularly your deeper dives, your hundreds, those are dangerous.
Yeah.
And you have to check your air, and you have to have your breaks and all of those things. And so you can't be thinking about the work or the billing or the chaos or personal issues or whatever. You have to be incredibly present. And so, one of the things, kind of taking this back to as a business owner, it never stops. Even when I'm on vacation or I could be doing anything else, I'm in trial, it never stops. I've got it on the lunch breaks, deal with things or, pause and do that. But when you're diving, it all stops, because you have to, it's your safety. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple little things in my life where things stop. I think the key is being able to do those as often as possible. I don't think we do those things often enough.
I don't.
Yeah. It's a lot. But all right, so last 2.5 years been great. Your firm has grown a lot. I mean, people all around town know you. What are some of the things that you feel like makes your firm different than maybe some other firms? But I think I have my own answer to this question, but I'll reserve what I want to say until I hear what you want to say. But what has been your focus to make sure that you guys kind of stand apart?
Communication.
Yeah.
Communication, and internally, it's on my computer screen at the office. I have 2 little stickies, and one of them says, what does the Lord require of me? To do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with my God. And that is the mentality, and part of that is how do I love my clients? How do I love my employees? To me, making sure my employees feel loved and respected and honored at work, we joke because for example, I give massages, once a month massage to all of my employees. They go, they see a massage therapist, and
the therapist does it.
Yes. Okay. Oh, good. Yes.
I'm like, this is
nobody wants me to be giving them a massage. First of all, it would mess up my nails. But yes, and so there's those kind of things, and then they're capable of communicate because I'm one person, and oftentimes the clients want to speak to me or deal with me, and I've empowered my team, and so clients get really good attention. I get feedback on that from them. I can say I have the privilege of representing Health First, and I can't tell you how often I get a comment on, how did you, tiny little, 10-person firm, land the second largest employer as a client. And, one of the comments I've said to folks, I'm like, we take care of our client.
Yeah.
We talk to them, we do the things that clients want. And then from our plaintiff's perspective, the same sort of thing. I'm accessible to my clients. I talk to them. We know what's happening in each other's life because I care. I see it. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. This is in part my mission field. This is how I love on people. This is how I can make sure, yes, it's great to make money. Don't get me wrong. I want to be rich and I want to make other people rich. So realistically, yes, that's over here. But at the core, I want to love people.
Right.
And I want them to feel loved. And part of that is the communication and making sure that when they're with us, there's thousands of firms they can pick from. If you are with us, you're going to feel cared for in some way, as best as I can, because I can't always make things better. And I can't make things right, when certain injustices have occurred. But I can make you feel like you were cared for it in the process. And that's a big deal for me. So
That verse you mentioned it from Micah
6:8.
Micah 6:8. My son, who's a Farsi linguist, I had him write that verse for me in Farsi. And then my tattoo artist, I have a couple, my tattoo artist
Me too.
put it right there. That's Micah 6:8 in Farsi, right there. Yeah, see,
You guys playing this?
This was,
Yeah, that's it's, and I quote it often because it's a good light post
Yeah, it
to
is.
kind of go, okay, what do I do in the situation? Okay, how do I do this? How do I engage? It's a good metric
It is.
for all kinds of thoughts and decisions and ideas.
100%.
So,
Communication, though, Karen, is like it's so simple, but that's so complicated. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I guess technically, what do you feel like some of the things you're doing as a founder is like bringing that game changer to your firm and doing what other firms aren't? What are some of those components that enable your team to communicate really well and give the best client experience, I guess.
So we have built-in tasks into our software that clients have a touch point with someone at the firm at least once a month. Because sometimes, in the plaintiff's cases, there's a lot of things that happen in both types of cases, a lot of things that happen in the beginning, and then there's a lull because the plaintiff is getting treatment, and so we as lawyers are waiting while the treatment is being obtained and things are moving forward. Well, even during that time, they're getting a touch point. How are you feeling? What's going on? Because we care. We want to know how you're feeling.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a touch point of, because when you have hundreds of cases, someone can slip, but having the software and the happy employees, all of my employees have bought into my belief and vision for the firm. So they're happy they see it as we are helping these clients. And so that touch point once a month of some kind, it may be an email, maybe a text, it may be a phone call. And so making sure that they feel seen, because unfortunately, that's not always the case in law firms. Sometimes they're too big to have quality service. And I jokingly say you have certain firms that are the Walmarts, and then you have me like the Chanel.
That's quite the contrast. I love it.
There's several Chanel firms in town. I'm not the only one.
But we're not going to talk about this.
No, of course not.
No, they're lovely.
No, that's also any other components that you feel like have been a game changer for you in building this firm, Karen? I mean, doing it here in Melbourne.
Doing it specifically in Melbourne? Well, okay. Brevard County as a whole, because my firm is in Rockledge, is
I'm from Ohio,
really
so it's all just Brevard.
It's all just
a
Melbourne.
Brevard, yeah.
Farm boy question.
Brevard.
Well, no, it's a cool place to be, and there's a really good mix of folks here.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that, but there's a really good mix. You've got a lot of out-of-towners. You still have a significant amount of folks who were born and raised here, and then you have folks that came like I did, work or family or whatever, and Brevard doesn't have that level of jadedness that other places have. And so it's allowed my practice specifically to have that sort of personal interaction. And like you mentioned, we do a lot of community work as a firm. It's a big deal to me. It is part of my life mission is, and I've got to say, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I am this way because of my parents. I was raised by two of the most amazing human beings put on this earth. And I love to tell folks that, we all have traumas from life and childhood, but none of them were from my home. I had a safe, loving home, and my parents led with an amazing example. And they were incredibly generous and felt that their responsibility in life was to love others. And so I saw that. That's what I saw as an example. And that to me is what it should be.
That's huge.
But then taking it back to your question, because I totally took a side road.
No, I love it.
Is in Brevard, that can be done. There are places, I've had cases in other jurisdictions in Florida where when I've tried to engage, it's met with skepticism. Like, girl, what you doing and why? I don't trust your intentions. Whereas here, you can be transparent, you can be vulnerable, and it's like, okay, this makes sense and it's understood, I think still.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Children's Hunger Project is a big part of what you care about, and just elaborate on that community stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so the Children's Hunger Project is the backpack food program for kids here in Brevard County. We are currently serving about 4,000 kids, which is crazy, because when I joined the organization 10 years ago, I joined probably 6 months after it was founded, we were serving a couple hundred. And so to know that there's a need here in Brevard of that magnitude is mind-blowing. And so what we do is we work with the school boards, we work with the teachers to make sure that we are filling that gap, because right now kids have lunch and breakfast at school, but then when they leave on Friday afternoon, they may not have another guaranteed meal until Monday morning. And so the Children's Hunger Project makes sure that they have something during those crucial days, because what teachers have always reported back is if they're not getting proper nutrition during the weekend, it takes into Monday afternoon or Tuesday before they're ready to learn again. And that's just not acceptable. Because again, on a broader scale, the way to improve our society as a whole is by properly educating our children. And so if they're not well fed, they're not learning. And I could talk about that for hours. We're changing lives on a very basic level, and I love it. I love it. I also sit on the board of weVenture, which is the Women's Business Center at Florida Tech. They likewise do amazing work, because the next step in growing a society and helping, just the world get better is empowering the moms, empowering the women, they serve males also, but empowering the women in how to start your own businesses, how to grow your businesses. What does that mean? What does that look like? How do you get funding? What are the legal aspects? And so weVenture has a great team that for either no cost or very little cost, you can go in and just understand how to start your businesses. And I think that's fantastic.
I remember hearing a statistic. I don't remember exactly
Remember, I don't do math.
The percentage. Right. No, ditto. We're alike on so many levels, but except you're smart. So, but I heard a statistic that women-owned businesses have a higher percentage of success than male-owned businesses, and that's like a national. That's a fact.
I believe that's true. Yes.
Yes. So,
oftentimes
I'll be looking for a female CEO for Legacy Angel Network at some point.
There's
Jessica Beck,
you're called. It's interesting because just the dynamic of, if most of us just look at our homes, there are, even in a very traditional, I can use my parents as an example. My parents are a very traditional Dominican family. My father is the head of the household, makes the significant decisions. But as my mom said when I was probably like 12, my dad's the head, but she's the neck, and people have heard that phrase before, and I saw it. It's true. And so, sort of the impact with love and respect and grace, but my mom was really the boss in that way, particularly with how our families moved and what happened to the children and the education and things like that. And so that's true. Yep. And so, when you empower women, you're really empowering society as a whole. When you educate women, if you look at some of the projects that are being done by some NGOs out in Africa, India, and Asia, it's usually getting the women and the girls educated, and you can see the countries in whole turn around. And so yeah, it's just exciting. And so it's an interesting thing. When I joined those two organizations, it wasn't intentional in that they support each other and coexist, but it just so happened that I found where my passions lie by being in them for so long. Because I think I've been with weVenture since, 2012, 13.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, and again, I do apologize for having to cancel on you with the weVenture event. I feel still.
Oh, that's okay. You'll have another chance.
Okay. Great.
August 24th. What camera should I look like to give that?
And Connor regrets ignoring you.
I was gonna say, I texted him twice.
I'll make my amends here live on camera, Karen.
Just give me a check.
Just kidding. We accept money here, though. Okay, fair enough.
Make it out to weVenture.
Yeah. Pay for my sins, literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome.
But amazing missions that you're a part of, Karen. And yeah, I feel like just like all those things that you're doing, holistically improving the community. I mean, that's just good for everything. Like on a deeper level than just business. It's cool. Kind of your view on how you're impacting the world. It's cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you a couple of other questions.
Okay.
All right. So this is as we start to land the plane in our little shows, we like to ask our founders, our leaders, the people that come here, what's kind of their interpersonal kind of like compass, what makes you tick, what makes you who you are. That's the first question. The second question would be, what advice would you offer to other entrepreneurs, people that are going out there and they're deciding that they're going to create a path, make a company, do a thing, create a product, whatever it is? Like, what advice would you offer the entrepreneurs who watch our little show here?
So what makes me tick?
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, I want to make Jose and Argentina proud. They sacrificed a lot to come here, and I want to make their sacrifice worthwhile. Number two, because I am so vocal with my faith, I want to honor that. Because we so often hear and see folks who are running their mouth loudly about their faith and then making a mockery of it, or literally pushing folks away from it. And so, the way in which I believe I'm called to love is to love. And it drives me to do things with excellence, because if I'm going to proclaim in a little, tag that this is who I am and who I serve and what I believe, I better hold true to it. And so those two things go hand in hand. It would extend to making my children proud and all that, but those two really are the top ones. My advice is, number one, believe in yourself. Because you're going to get knocked down so much and so much adversity. So there has to be, even when it's fake. Like, I had times following my asset reallocation where I had stickers to kind of remind myself of why I was doing this, and so I could be my hype woman. Number two, don't be afraid to ask for help. Believing in yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself or making yourself so separate from folks. And asking for help makes you vulnerable, and most folks don't like being vulnerable. And so that's really hard. But so many of my larger successes have come from asking a question and then learning from that information that I received. And I'm not uncomfortable making a fool of myself in general, but that's not necessarily vulnerable, but asking someone and saying, hey, I don't know what to do with this. And in some of them, it was to folks who were technically competitors. And I called and said, I don't know what to do with this. What are your thoughts? And they were gracious and helpful. And so asking for help would be my number two. And then number three, get yourself a good tribe. Get get you a tribe, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a group of girlfriends or guy friends or whatever, get you a tribe that can support you when things get really tough. Because they're going to get tough.
Yep.
They're going to get tough. They're going to get uncomfortable. They're going to get painful. And I don't think we as humans were meant to do it alone. And so having your tribe that when you think, you know what, screw it, I'm out, I can't do this, come beside and go, nah, girl, you got this, or, whatever it is that you need to get you through, because sometimes you're really relying on them to get you through the day. I mean, there were days where I was like, I'm not doing this. I was a single mom with kids and running around and crazy and chaos, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And I would have friends that were like, nope, you got it. You know why you're doing this. Keep going. And so I think those three things sort of work together and would be my my top 3 sections of advice.
I think there's oh man, I feel like if we had more time, you could unpack each one of those and just we could make a whole series out of this. Like that's excellent advice.
Thank you.
Excellent advice, because it kind of it takes you down to like the core. This is who you are, and by virtue of like who you are, our nature is supposed to be humble and to ask, to realize that I am not, and I need the strength of them because I'm not strong here. So it's like I don't have to, and being comfortable enough to understand like weakness is okay, or not knowing is okay, and giving yourself permission. But then it also shows other people the kind of person you are, right? There's nothing worse than a founder who can't be taught anything or has to pretend like they have it all together, because it's exhausting for any human being.
And it comes out, because at some point, either your team or your people or your staff or your client or whatever product or service you're providing will recognize you've made a mistake, and then it's well, you seemed very certain and there was no authenticity in the process, and you can. I've made mistakes, and you call up the client and say, hey, I made this mistake. Let's talk about it. Let me own it. And all of that vulnerability ties into it. Being able to recognize most of us, as we're building our businesses, are actually building the plane while we're flying it. There's pieces that you're assembling and changing and looking and trying to understand. And like in my case, it was a moving plane, and then all of a sudden we're like, we're going to take off the wings and add different wings and become a helicopter. And, like all of a sudden, as it's in the air, you're making these changes and, asking and recognizing and being vulnerable with your staff. Like I had to tell my staff multiple times, guys, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm looking for answers. I'm researching. I'm reading. I'm trying to figure this out, and let them know so that it wasn't they were presuming it was, and then they get scared and leave, because they're like, well, she doesn't know what she's doing. I don't know, but I know people who do, and we're gonna solve this, and we're gonna fix this, and so even to me, to some perspective, being vulnerable with your staff, I think, or in my case, was a big deal.
It's really powerful, and like a lot of power in just sharing stories like that too, and being candid about your life like this, Karen. I mean, because people can be like, Karen was, the little girl in the garage, and she made it, and people just need to be able to like participate and hear those things. Other founders need to be able to participate and hear those things. It makes an impact,
Thank you for that.
You heard the phrase, being broke made me rich. I love that. I mean, it's just how it allows you in the moment when you're in those low spots to remember, like, okay, this is a pinch point or inflection point that I've seen other people come out of, or my other role models come out of, and so I gotta just gotta let it pass or move through it and like stay focused. Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because I would have not, even 3 or 4 years ago, been comfortable sharing, because I presumed it was a weird thing to be talking about. And then I had a dear friend who's like, well, people need to hear. And,
they do.
And, specifically, she had commented, she's like, young immigrant girls like you were, who, I mean, I didn't speak the language when I came here. I spoke zero English. And, young brown girls who are like, how do I do this? What does it look like? And she shifted, shout out to Catherine, she shifted my worldview on, oh, okay, that does. And it's when I started doing much more mentoring and realizing, because I didn't think I had made it. I mean, I still don't think I have. So let's be real honest. And that could be a whole side podcast that I'm working with my therapist on, because I don't. But yes, when you kind of look, there's there's certain things of a societal metric that we've succeeded in. And I say we because I didn't do it by myself.
Right.
And so that was eye-opening to me in the last couple of years, because before I was like, oh no, I've got to have these ridiculous other metrics, or I've got to be somebody else. And you know, it was like, no, you cool.
Yep.
Okay, well then I guess I got to help other people.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
It's awesome. We're just absolutely stoked that you came here today.
Thanks for having me. This was way
absolutely.
fun.
Good,
Yeah,
Karen.
yeah, we really enjoyed it.
We did too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for listening, everybody.